Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another. I'm thinking this is the last recording from Teching the Enterprise. I don't know. This really ends up trying to be kind of a sum up, and it's crazy because you're going to still be talking about this for quite a bit in the future. This class really ends up being about trends because that's all there really is here. You know, you can try to find greater truth in this, and it's mostly philosophy being brought into the IT realm because the IT realm is actually quite young. It hasn't been around very long, and so we're still applying some of the old ideas of the economics of scale and how we view the world is finally starting to impinge on information systems, which used to be quite wild and woolly. I always like that part. I'm finding out over time that I'm kind of a gunslinger. So it's kind of sad for me to see IT getting all stodgy and planned economy and stated when I really am a gunslinger. It's almost like, well, it's time to go off and do something else so I can keep gunslinging, baby, because that's just what I enjoy doing. And people get upset. You know, you don't bring up statistics very much, and you don't do this, and you're not very empirical. No, I'm not. I'm not empirical. And I'll be the first one to say it. I'm the guy that comes up with crazy new ideas, and maybe they take hold, and sometimes they don't. I try not to be stupid, but I don't let myself get steered by numbers. Am I going to die one day? Yeah, I'm probably going to die younger than other people, probably. And statistically, oh no, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's talk about this. Life cycle is a big thing in IT. You can apply it to every single facet of everything. I think it came from people talking about the human life cycle. Erik Erikson, people like that, for saying that at certain times in your life, certain things get more interesting. Certain things get more important. You know, the concerns you have as a child aren't the concerns you have as an old person. And applying this to other fields, and one of them is information technology. So now and I'm not going to talk about life cycle in software or in hardware. That's where it says, okay, you buy something, you set it up, you run it, and there's a certain amount of time where it seems logical to do so. It's usually tied to how long a manufacturer is willing to give you a warranty for parts after a certain amount of time, 3, 4, 5 years. They will stop. They will say, we're not going to replace parts that break on that. You know, it's expected that you're supposed to buy a whole other computer and start all over again. And then it's how you get rid of things once you're done, whether you recycle them, whether you sell them off to someplace else who takes older equipment and is grateful to have it. I thought that was interesting. I went to a Clovis Community College had an auction a while back, long time ago, and they were selling a lot of old computers. They'd finally cleaned out a couple of their labs and their storage for computers, and they had pallets and pallets and pallets of old computers. I bought 2 pallets of old IBM PCs for like $2. It was amazing. Anyway, I didn't ever end up doing anything with them because they weren't worth much. I parted them up and put them on eBay and probably barely made back the $2. You know, and most of the people that were doing it were buying up all the stuff and then selling them to Mexico. That doesn't work anymore because technology in Mexico is really quite up to date now, where in the past it wasn't. They didn't have the money, so it was between having no computers and having really old hand-me-down American computers. And now that's not the fact anymore. So you always have to be kind of looking at what the market is. The scrap market for computers has really gone down to the floor, to the point to where people don't even bother. Now, the life cycle, at the end of the life cycle of equipment, hardware, for instance, is just scrapping it for whatever metal it's got in it. And frankly, anymore, we put such cheap materials into computers because we figured out that we could make that work just as well. Before it was a great thing. Ooh, you can take an old computer board, and it was full of gold. And you could heat it up and drain that gold out, and you'd have a little bitty ingot of gold. It's very small. It ended up not really being worth the effort. And especially now, we don't use gold in anything anymore. We've now used cheaper alloys and stuff like that seem to work just as well. When gold used to be the standard, because that was the only way you can make things work faster, was to have gold between them. Anyway, and I don't know if that was really true, but that's what they did. Anyway, so now it's just like recycle the life cycle. So here's what happens. Let's try to apply this more to information systems on your level, which is going to be managing this stuff. And you still have the whole thing with hardware and with software. There's a certain life cycle to it, and you really have to kind of know when it's time for software to go away or time to do a total retooling of it, because software is not hardware. It's totally different. Let me talk about change, because change has a life cycle too. You have to know that you're going to have to do this over and over and over again. You start bringing in people. If your organization gets big enough, it even makes sense to actually hire people and put them strictly to the task of managing change. So you have a change life cycle too, and it's faster and faster and faster and faster. I think this kind of goes back to the old days when your grandfather, or probably you guys' great-great-grandfathers, would go to work for a company. They would finally get a job with a big company or something, and they would work their entire lives for that company, maybe even get promotions in it. And at the end of the day, you'd have a wonderful pension. They'd give you a gold watch. Ooh, nice. To praise you for all of your dedication and loyalty to the company. And life isn't that way at all. If you're not willing to jump time and time and time and time and time again, nobody's going to think much of you. You're going to stagnate. They'll say, well, they're not worth anything. They worked for the same company for 30 years. Stupid. They could have made a lot more money by making strategic career choices. Anyway, so even within an organization, you have to be ready for this just constant churn of change. The time that you finally make one change, you all of a sudden say, wait a minute, this change that we finally implemented, it's not sufficient anymore either. We've got to change again. It is about pacing in the modern world. I think I've talked about it a little bit before. It's just faster and faster and faster. And you almost have to be able to take, like I said before, a step back and see that you have to have larger principles going. I talk about this about money and family and stuff like that. I know you guys have done that, and sometimes you go confused. This isn't that kind of a class. And you go, it applies to everything. That sometimes you change jobs because that's the best thing for your family. Sometimes you do something in your personal life, and it's to open up a wider range of possibilities. And the same thing happens in organizations, like it says here. So just know that not only do you have to manage IT, manage hardware, software, the different ways you're going to go, but you also have to be able to manage change, period, the change itself. Wow. Okay, so that's, I think, all we have for Teching the Enterprise. Have a great, great day.